all the delegates. AFTP would like to welcome all the delegates for the session for the session on opportunities for professionals in the field of IBC and other related services. AFTP would also like to welcome our guest of honor, CA Anil Goel sir, and esteemed speaker for today, CA Ankit Goel ji, who would be taking us to the wonderland of Insolvency and Bankruptcy Act. This is a new field, and we as a professional would love to explore these fields when we talk about. We are also live on AFTP page. Link of live streaming on Facebook shall also be posted on the chat box. Friends, we all are passing through the second wave of COVID, which is hitting us very badly, directly or indirectly. We hope that you all are taking necessary precautions and are staying safe. We are strong believer of words. Jaan hai to jahan hai. Just to introduce AFTP. AFTP is a national level body consisting of chartered accountants, lawyers, company secretaries, as well as cost management accountant. The main objective of AFTP is to extend, spread, and support the research work and output in the field of audit, accountancy, financial management, taxation, direct, indirect, insolvency, valuation, secretarial work, and related offshores. We as an AFTP want our members to be equipped to enable them to discharge their obligations towards the advancement or promotion of the trade, commerce, and industry, thereby leading to the economic prosperity for the benefit of the entire community. The third main aim of AFTP is to help their members stay updated with the recent developments around the industry as well as profession, and to give them the opportunities with regard to the latest developments in the professions. Currently, we are a team of more than 100 members, and we are subdivided into various committees such as IDT, Direct Tax, Audit Assurance, Startup, MSME, IBC, and Valuation. Considering the current pandemic situation, Team AFTP has decided to keep the membership for financial year 2021 till 2022 on complimentary basis. You just need to go to our websites and fill up the form for the purpose of taking the membership of AFTP. With this background about AFTP, let us all welcome our guest of honor for today, CA Anil Goel ji. Being professionally very active and one of the first to insolvency resolution entity in India, he does not need any formal introduction for sure. But for the brevity of the audience, delegates, participants, we are just sharing a snapshot of his key accolades. He is a fellow chartered accountant by profession and founder and chairman of AAA Insolvency Professional LLP. CA Anil Goel ji is the most experienced insolvency professional in India, and he has completed 15 cases till date under his name when we talk about. And in addition, he has been acting as a liquidator in more than 10 companies presently. His firm, his LLP, AAA Insolvency Professional LLP, has been handled more than 190 assignments with 42 designated and associate partners acting as a liquidator or as an insolvency professional. He is currently co-chairman of ASSOCHAM. He has been actively involved in implementation of individual bankruptcy in India as a working member of group of IBBI. He has been an eminent speaker at various forums such as PhD, FICCI, CII, ASSOCHAM, ICI, ICSI, ICMA, IBBI, etc. Just to name few. So he has been a regular contributor to various articles and publications. Everyone, please note that his word of wisdom can change anyone's life in case they are willing up to enter in the field of insolvency. And he has been a role model for us as an organization also. Over to you, Anil sir, for your kind wisdom words, sir.
Thank you, Pritam ji. First of all, I think it is your love and affection which makes you to say too many things for me, and some of the things are not even factually correct. I was the co-chairman till March 21 for ASSOCHAM. Presently, I am not. Everything else you said is as far as the numbers are concerned is fact. But as I always say that we started learning in November, or rather, in fact, I would say I started learning insolvency in March 2016, when we were having a conference of AAA group, and almost 200 people across the country they visited, and it was a residential conference for about 3 days. It was March 16 when a draft was released for insolvency law, and I actually spent about 1.5 hours in that AAA conference on insolvency law. Finally, it was enacted in June and it was notified. It started in November, 1st of December 2016. So since then, I think it has taken like 4.5 years. It is a matured law as of now, barring some capacity problems. But yes, what we have seen that this law has provided us a lot of opportunities. And a mid-level CA firm, which used to be at that time AKG and Company, is now AAAG to have a synchronization with the AAA brand. Now it is a total group of financial services with more than 350 human resources, offices across the country, partners across the country, it all from a small mid-level CA firm in 2016. So all these opportunities that we have seen, and I would like Mr. Ankit to share with all of you. This is a great opportunity that I'm getting, that today I feel that I'm only trying to inspire people, professional colleagues. May it be, we have company secretaries as partner, we have cost and management accountants as partner, we have lawyers partner. So we have all professionals who are working under one roof, using the same infrastructure, collating all kind of capabilities, experiences, and that is the process that we are able to deliver the best. We are also able to create infrastructure which is economically viable. Why it is economically viable? Because we have larger number of human resources, partners, more opportunities, larger number of cases. So it cannot happen overnight. See, what I'm trying to say is that I had actually learned from one seminar that I attended in my life, and it was told by one visionary person that if you see why international brands in financial services are actually having more than 70-80% of the total auditing business in India, it is only because they invest in marketing. So we as Indian chartered accountants, we were not investing in marketing. And it is very important that we all must invest in marketing. And if you invest in marketing and the leads will come to you, then you work on the leads, you develop those leads, and that actually converted into a business. But before you convert the lead, before you have the lead, we should be able to spend some time, we should be able to invest on the infrastructure. If we have the infrastructure, if we have people, some people sitting on the benches, if we have some people, some vacant seats in the office, that is preferable. Because see, in that case, you will always have, no, I think, let me tell you that you should always have few seats in your office vacant, so that you always develop an urge that there are few seats in the office which is still not occupied. So I still can afford to have more employees and more partners. This is number one. Number two is that you should actually have some of the people who has lesser work or no work in your organization, so that you always have an urge that I need more work because I have to give them work. So these two things actually have helped us. If we have surplus capacity, little bit of surplus capacity, then the main people who are responsible for the overall organization, they will spend more time on marketing. They will spend more time in training also, because the two things are more important. One is the customer and the second is the employee. I mean, all these like 30 years of experience that I have, it was always told that the customer is important. But now I would say, in fact, one of the visionaries are saying that before the customer, it comes the employees and partners. So if you have motivated employees and partners, that actually will bring customers also. In profession, I still feel that is better. Whereas in brand building things, I still feel that the customer is more important. But yes, in profession, in services, I believe that the employees and partners are the first, then is the customer. Because if you are able to develop, if you are able to retain, if you are able to motivate your employees and partners, that will automatically bring work. And one satisfied customer will give you lead. That would be the biggest motivation for the employees to work harder. So like this is, while professional opportunities are huge, I'm trying to share with you our own story. Our own story. Number one, always look forward. Look forward. You see, like what we did first. First, we saw that the SURFACI Act came. The SURFACI Act, it was not kind of something which is very common. It came in 2002. And as a simple chartered accountant, I used to go to the bank and get some loan proposals sanctioned, preparing CMA data, getting restructuring done. And some banker told me that today I was remembering you. I said, what happened? Then he said that, in fact, we advertised that we need to outsource this SURFACI process. Then I said, what is SURFACI process? And then the officer of the bank said that the SURFACI process is this and this, and this is a new law. So I was thinking that you might also apply. I said, I have no knowledge about what this SURFACI law is, but then I asked that officer. So then they gave me that newspaper advertisement. Then I also applied for that. So since that date, the SURFACI has become a very big business for us. We are the largest in the country. We have been given more than 27,000 SURFACI cases by the banks and financial institutions, ARCs and NBFCs. There is not even one bank who has not empaneled us. And there is no second agency in the country which probably will have even 10,000 cases. So that was innovative. Similarly, when this insolvency law came, we were the second insolvency professional entity in the country. When this valuation, the registered valuer concept came, we were the fourth valuer entity in the country. So what I was trying to do, what I was trying to say is one is the taking a risk. Number two, investment in surplus infrastructure and surplus employees. Number three, invest on the marketing, and then work on the leads. And the most important is that your partners and employees are first, then is your customer. If you can try understanding what I'm saying, in services business, motivated people will motivate you. So in case you get some assignment and you are not able to execute it, you get demotivated. But in case you get an assignment based on your marketing efforts, based on your investment in infrastructure and investment in technology, that also gets motivated. So the fourth thing that I would like to say to all of you is the technology, adoption of technology. In 1992, in fact, it was very kind of a few people used to have computer, and when I purchased the computer, I had no knowledge about the computer, and that was the first time that I touched the computer, but I purchased it, not handled any course, not gone through any course, but that was the first time we purchased the computer. And see, there used to be a CTR encyclopedia of income tax cases. I was a subscriber to those kind of softwares in the very first few customers. That actually paid well to us. When the income tax officials came to know that Mr. Goel has a kind of a software, they used to call me that we need some judgment on this kind of topic. Then I was known as an expert that he has all the judgments, and nobody could realize that I have that CD. It is a compact disc launched by CTR, and I actually use that CD to market myself. Whereas I used to provide any kind of, because I understood how the search can be done for finding case laws. Similarly, the using softwares for assessing the employees' performance, using softwares for employees' discipline, using softwares for tax filings and all that. I think we are the first few. I think we are the first 2% in the country to use any software which has been made for the professionals, for which is got any use, may it be called any tax returns or any kind of. So these things actually matters. Today we are only Ankit ji would be talking about the various professional opportunities. I'm talking about the professional traits. How can you develop the how can you motivate yourself? How can you develop the infrastructure? See, most of the people, they are very intelligent. They know the entire law, they know everything, but the developing an organization is something that is also a very important ingredient of your success. Developing an organization and taking along everyone, that's a very big requirement when you talk about success in the profession. I have actually seen many lawyers now, since we are we have to engage lawyers almost every day. 20 cases are listed where we are either RP or the liquidator, so we work with many lawyers. But actually it is difficult to work with a lawyer who doesn't have any infrastructure. It is difficult to give work to someone who does not use technology. And it is also not possible to work with a person who doesn't have any case law searching technology or some assistants. See, people are now interested in home delivery, home service. If we ask our client that you get these papers photocopied or you send a printouts of this, so all this has to be with you. You may charge or you may include everything, but see, there are lawyers, they would say that, okay, I have drafted, now you print it out, now you number it, now you stamp it, now you sign it. No, infrastructure is required to satisfy a client. So these are some of the things that I would like to say regarding the capacity building, lead development and lead generation and motivation. So you should always have some surplus infrastructure and surplus employees. Then you will always remain motivated that you need some more work. If you yourself is stressed up in the work since morning till late evening, then you will never do marketing. I was reading a novel during the daytime. Somebody came to my office, some senior person. I'm talking about something because I started my practice in 1984. For first couple of years, there used to be some time available. So while sitting on my office desk, I was reading a novel. Some visionary came and he says one thing, that when you have work, then you are engaged in the work. And when you don't have the work, if you go for entertainment, then where is the time for marketing? So you need to say that these 8 hours or these 7 hours, these are only for my profession. So if you don't have the work for that day, that particular time should be used for marketing, for upgradation of knowledge, for spreading knowledge, for training, for setting systems, for making formats, for making checklists, for making the things that you are going to do in future easier. So these are some of the things which are very, very important for the professional development of profession, and creating your own market in the space. So, Pritamji, I wanted to share all these things because after that, once a person said, like, if you have work, you are doing work, and if you don't have work, you are reading novel, that means that you are entertaining yourself. That's not fair. Your entertainment time is before your office hours. If you need more entertainment, then you can, if you have more such kind of work, then you can even keep Saturday off for your entertainment. But you must have a dedicated some hours where you are only and only doing profession. And we have no professional work today. That doesn't mean that you should go for entertainment, rather you should go for marketing. I know a couple of doctors, very close friend of mine, and I have known him since he started. Learned a lot from that doctor. He had hospital timing, then his private clinic timing. In between, he was having 1 or 2 hours or 3 hours every day. I have not seen him resting on that particular time. He used to go to other doctors who are general practitioners because he was a specialist. And he used to prepare articles, and he used to prepare lectures, and he used to prepare PPTs, and he was actually developing a relationship with organizations so that he is called for lectures. So he also could have rested those periods. He also could have watched a movie, but then he never did that, and he's a very, very successful doctor today. So friends, I think my role today was this only. Pitamji, if you want anything else that I should handle, please let me know. As far as the opportunities are concerned, I believe Ankitji would handle what are the specific opportunities in IBC. I just wanted to say something which came in my mind, and I just shared with you.
Thanks a lot for your words of wisdom, sir. The words with regard to leadership qualities, how a leader gets himself involved for creating that structure was something very immense. So whatever you have just given a thought to, or whatever you have expressed upon, is something which can be used or which can be implemented in various divisions. It is not only in insolvency division, IBC division. This is something as a professional we should vouch for, we should have a vision towards in case of any division, whether we talk about indirect taxes, whether we talk about audit assurance, the terms with regard to human resource, term with regard to training, term with regard to knowledge upgradation, with regard to presentations, with regard to preparation of templates for the team, for the purpose of team training, with regard to the infrastructure, sitting arrangements, with regard to human source intermingling, with regard to promoters, the partners being active partners who are involved in marketing, capacity building, technology. So all terms which we have used are definitely most important things which as a profession we should keep in our mind for the purpose of enhancement of our profession in a whole when we talk about. Thanks a lot for your words of wisdom, sir. This will certainly generate a lot of energy in our soul, and we will try to implement these things in our real life also, practical life. Now I would like to welcome Atul Jindal ji. He is an executive committee member of Association of Finance and Tax Professional, who shall be introducing the speaker for today. Over to you, Atulji.
Thank you, Preetamji, and thank you, Anil sir. I would like to introduce CA Ankit Goel, who has a vast experience in handling insolvency and valuation matters. He is a founder partner of the AAA Insolvency Professional LLP, which is the only second firm to get registered with the IBBI as an Insolvency Professional Entity. He's been a regular faculty member with various registered valuation organizations, wherein he keeps on sharing his knowledge and experience which he has faced as an insolvency professional. He also addressed various forums like SBI bank officials or the India International Dispute Meet. So I would like to see Ankit Goyalji to enlighten us with the opportunity on the subject matter.
Thank you so much, Atulji. Thank you for that introduction. I am not an insolvency professional. I would like to clarify. I am part of AAA Insolvency. I am a registered valuer, however. I do have my passion for insolvency, being part of AAA Insolvency. And I will, of course, share whatever we have for IBC and whatever is available for IBC. So today's session, where we are talking about opportunities in insolvency or opportunities under IBC, we're not only talking about opportunities as insolvency professionals. Of course, that is part of what we will be discussing, but we will also be discussing about opportunities which are available for other professionals. And when we talk about other professionals, we'll be talking about chartered accountants, we will talk about company secretaries, lawyers, we will be talking about valuers, we'll be talking about forensic auditors. There are a host of experiences that one can have as a professional which can surround around IBC. So I will request everyone to keep this as an interactive session. I like having interactive sessions, and I would like to answer queries that anyone has as I go through the presentations. So going forward, we need to understand what are the objectives of IBC, why is IBC there? And I think most of you being professionals would know that IBC came in 2016, came in as a reformative law. What does it want to do? It wants to improve the ease of doing business. When we talk about ease of doing business, we're not only talking about shortening the number of time or shortening the number of days that are required to incorporate a company. Yes, somebody who wants to do business will like to incorporate his entity in no time, but even that is one part. What ease of doing business also includes, as per the World Bank report, is that it should also be easy for somebody to shut down their business that they tried running, which they tried their gave their full attention, but it still did not take off with big takeoff, because internationally it is now believed and understood that it is important for entrepreneurs to be allowed to shut off their business or close their business if that idea is not working, or if they are not able to implement that idea. That is also necessary because businesses fail. It's inherent nature that businesses often fail. So what are objectives of IBC? Otherwise, you would promote entrepreneurship, right? If somebody knows that it is easy for me to shut down my business, close my business, yes, entrepreneurship will increase because it will become easier for somebody to get out of a bad venture. Improve availability of credit at low markup. Why does it make sure that credit is available at a low markup? Because what increases the markup in credit is the NPA. In case the bank keeps losing principal money when it kind of involves itself in any transaction, any credit transaction. In that case, it becomes therefore important that one would say that the availability of credit at a discount will be at a lesser rate will be then available to those people. Balance the interest of all stakeholders, maximization of value of assets. What do we mean by maximization of value of assets? I think all of you will agree with me when I say that the company, any company for that matter, if it has some assets, maybe some plant and machinery assets, maybe some land and building assets, maybe some receivables, maybe other assets, intangible assets. All these assets can be used by that company to generate value, generate profits, generate cash flows. Now, if a company is not able to do that, the same land and building, the same plant and machinery might be able to use for some alternative purpose, where that alternative purpose can result into some yields for the owner, right? So the idea is to maximize the value of the assets by either giving the assets to some person, some management which is able to work around those assets, or to transfer those assets to somebody else, or just liquidate them, so that whoever is the buyer is able to then use the same for making money, or for making or creating some value. So these are some statistics. I have taken these out from the IBBI's quarterly newsletter, and this one is from March 21, where we have the number of insolvency resolution processes that have, this is how the numbers have stacked up, starting from March 2017, March 18, 19, 20, and 21. If you see this, you will see that, okay, there were about 700 cases that were admitted in financial year 17-18. There were about 1,200 cases which were admitted in financial year 2019, and there were about a substantial 2,000 cases admitted in March 20. In March 21, in the financial year 2021, due to the COVID issue, the new defaults were not being admitted, and the number of cases have risen by only about 500 or so cases. And growing from March 21 till date, we know that yes, another 200 cases were admitted since March 21, since the CIRP, or since the embargo on the CIRP start, or the default process, has been lifted. We also need to understand that the number of closed cases have also been, of course, rising. But yes, there are about 1,700 cases which are still pending, and these 1,700 cases which are still pending in CIRP, they are ongoing, and yes, they are being taken care of by the various insolvency professionals and going through the processes. So any questions on these numbers, you can let me know. I'll move forward.
Ankit ji, regarding this question CIRP, this is number including liquidation, or this is only with regard to CIRP?
Only CIRP.
Okay.
So when we say closure in this case will also include the cases that have gone into liquidation.
Okay.
So what has happened? So we need to understand the second number. This is again coming in from IBBI, and it says that the mode of closure of CIRPs, that how are CIRPs getting closed. So 48% of the cases have gone into liquidation. Appeal or review or settlement has happened in 23% of the cases. 16% cases have been withdrawn under Section 12A. So Section 12A was an amendment that was introduced in IBC, and then that allows for withdrawal of cases by the company, by the creditors, by the RP, once the creditors come to a conclusion that they will like to withdraw from CIRP and the company seems to be healthy and the company will run after the debts are settled. Then, of course, in 13% cases, the resolution plan is approved. This is the mode of closure of CIRPs for the numbers that we just shared. These are the kind of industries that have gone into CIRP. So a substantial number of cases have been admitted in manufacturing division. Then there are real estate, renting, business activities, that are 862 cases. Then there is construction, that is 458, wholesale and retail trading is 442, and other cases or other industries are 465. But yes, these are the numbers. This is how the settlement has happened with respect to all these cases. Somewhere the resolution plans have been approved, some places the liquidation has happened. So this is what we find here. Of course, when we talk about these cases, these 4,300 or so cases, or these about 5,000 cases, 4,300, 4,400 cases, we talk about the cases which also include cases which have been which were sick for a long time, which were pending with BFR. So there was always a lot of baggage along with these companies. Nobody can say that all these companies had a fresh default. Maybe many of these companies had their first default as long back as 10 years, 20 years, right? Another figure that is for your information is stakeholder-wise distribution and how the insolvency is triggered. So operational creditors, blue signifies the leftmost column talks about operational creditors, then red ones talk about financial creditors, and the light blue ones talk about corporate debtors. So corporate debtors have initiated very few insolvencies. Most insolvencies have been initiated by operational creditors, and that is followed by financial creditors. So that number has been increasing from OCs and FCs, but corporate debtors have not been filing under section 10 too much. That is the number that we see here. So what is expected out of an insolvency professional? So insolvency professional must maintain integrity, should have good communication skills, must maintain complete independence, reasonable care, intelligence is expected, and the role is challenging but rewarding also. Should be good at running businesses, skilled to construing and negotiating deals, investigating into affairs of the corporate debtor to find diversions, frauds, objectionable transfers, understand viability of business, sustainable debt, etc. So these are expectations from IBC, from an insolvency professional. Coming to the next part, we talk about qualifications that are necessary or that are required for somebody to become an IP. So you would need 10-year post-qualification experience. Now here, when you talk about 10-year post-qualification, one can have experience as a CA, CS, cost accountant, or an advocate from the date of membership or from the date of membership of the Bar Council. The certificate of practice is not a criteria. So it is starting from your date of membership, this 10-year period. But when it comes to 15 years of management experience, then you have to establish that you were in a management experience for 15 years. These are the two categories which can allow you to appear for an exam called limited insolvency examination. Limited insolvency examination is an examination where which needs to be completed by you within 12 months before the date of your application as application for enrollment. And then this limited insolvency examination tests your knowledge on IBC, on ancillary laws, on Companies Act, and so on. And that is a examination that one can give at all these NSC IT centers. Then one has to complete, once the examination is complete and once you're a member of an IPA, an insolvency professional agency, then you can complete your 50-hour pre-registration course and then continue with your application to IBBI for registration with them.
So Ankit ji, there is one question of Yogesh Sharma ji. Can non-CA do the IP course? So I think so. The or condition, the subsequent condition is something which they can vouch for.
Management experience they can vouch for. Yes.
Okay. So Yogesh ji, so you can come in the second conditions of management experience, and there is reciprocating conditions. You need to fulfill those conditions, and you can qualify for the purpose of giving examination with regard to IP.
So moving forward, then just a second. The other options that are available to professionals who are not meeting that criteria that I mentioned for a longer time and they still want to be insolvency professional, there is a graduate insolvency program which has an age limit of about 28 years. It is a 27-month course with a 3-month international period, and it is a mix of classroom study and practical experience. And then Indian Institute of Corporate Affairs, IICA, there is one batch that graduated in 2021 already, which started in 19. Second batch started in 2020, and of course they're starting a third batch. Then recently National Law Institute University, Bhopal, NIU, as they call it, NLIU, has also been allowed to conduct these graduate insolvency programs. So these are very, very, I think, small batches for now, about 38-40 students in one batch. And one can also go for this batch if one is able to give 2 years of full time into an education which is into insolvency. So younger chartered accountants, so just qualified, they can go for this. They can appear for an interview before these institutes, IICA or NLIU, and get admitted in a classroom kind of a program where they can do a 2-year program. National Institute program, National Insolvency program will be launched later. It has not been announced yet, but it is provided for in the Act that yes, there can be a National Insolvency program which allows brighter students who have just cleared their 12th examination to then come into the insolvency profession with a 5-year course. So those details are not available because that structure has yet to be made. So far, the structure that is being followed is graduate insolvency program and the limited insolvency examination. So these are the two routes through which a person can become insolvency professional. So what are the roles that an insolvency professional can meet? So it's not a small list, it's a long list. So we start with interim resolution professional. Who appoints the interim resolution professional? The adjudicating authority or the NCLT appoints the interim resolution professional. Interim resolution professional, when somebody is filing an application with the adjudicating authority, financial creditors, corporate debtors have to talk about which insolvency professional do they want to be appointed, and operational creditors may or may not say that they want a certain person to be the insolvency professional, who is working on the company. So interim resolution professionals are the initial appointment. Interim resolution professionals become resolution professionals for the same case in case the creditors give a confirmation on the same. Interim resolution professionals can be changed by the committee of creditors to have different resolution professionals on the job. The total CIRP period, that is corporate insolvency resolution process period, is 180 days. It can be increased by 90 days to 70 days. Liquidator, the insolvency professional can then become a liquidator in case the CIRP process does not go well and the case goes into liquidation. There are a few judgments now in NCLT and NCLAT which allow a case to be moved directly into liquidation, or the law also now allows the committee of creditors to decide early that they want liquidation in the said matter. They don't even want to conduct a CIRP. So representative of a creditor in committee creditors is again a role that somebody can place. The representative of a class of creditors is again a role. You see home buyers need an authorized representative. So that class of creditors can have a representative in the COC because it is not practically possible to maybe have 400 people in a meeting. So there is one person who then represents all that class of creditors and then represents or votes on their behalf. Voluntary liquidation is again a chapter in IBC, which allows solvent companies to finish off their business. So companies that never started business, made a company, but they still have some money, but they want to, no longer continue. So they can go for a voluntary liquidation. They can appoint an insolvency professional as a voluntary liquidator. Resolution professional for individuals, partnerships, or proprietorships. The part that is provided for in the Act is for all such entities, but what has been activated and what has also been held to be constitutionally valid by the Supreme Court recently is about the insolvency or bankruptcy of personal guarantors to corporate debtors. Right, so there is a corporate person, he's not able to, or corporate person can be an LLP or a company, they're not able to pay their debts. Now, whoever has guaranteed for that corporate or for that corporate person, that person can be, there is a possibility that the financial creditors, other creditors can initiate proceedings against that person who has given a guarantee to them that in case the company is not able to pay, then they will pay. Bankruptcy trustee is what is the process. So, and liquidation happens for the company, bankruptcy happens for the individual, because in a bankruptcy case, you're then kind of having a different process that you have for the individual. In case of liquidation, you are kind of eliminating the company. In case of an individual, you will not be eliminating the person, you will be eliminating his problem of bankruptcy, that he is not able to pay his dues. Then, of course, one can promote an insolvency professional entity beyond these roles or these jobs that one can have. They can promote an IPE or be a partner in the IPE. The IPE is allowed, or the Insolvency Professional Entity is allowed by IBBI to render services or render support services to other IPs also, non-partner IPs also. So you can build a strong database, strong base within your organization, and then render services or render support services to other IPs. Any questions on what I just discussed? Continuing the same, resolution professional for pre-packaged insolvency resolution professional can be there. The resolution professional in that case can be a consultancy role with the CD, then there is a pre-appointment role, then there is a post-appointment role. So all these roles can be practiced by the person. And then of course an insolvency professional can prepare resolution plans and handhold any takeover process. So what does interim resolution professional need to do? He needs to take over the control and custody of corporate debtors as a going concern. He needs to understand the financial position of corporate debtor, including fund flow and asset liability mismatch, to understand the formation, objectives, sustenance, reasons for default of corporate debtor, take over control and operations of all bank accounts of operational corporate debtor, public announcement of CIRP and inviting claims, receiving, collating, verification of claims from secured or unsecured financial creditors, constitution of committee of creditors, appoint representatives of class of creditors, preparation of reports for submission to National Company Law Tribunal, convening of meetings of committee of creditors. Anyone who has any questions on any of the terms that this page uses as to the duties of IRP, or any questions on this page? So coming to resolution professional, the resolution professional, then as I said, either the IRP is confirmed to be RP or the IRP is changed and the RP then gets appointed. The RP is supposed to finish the process in 180 days, but that process can be extended to 270 days. And the RP is to continue the operations of the corporate debtor as a going concern and manage the entire business, including fund flow, accounting, assessments, litigations, etc. So preparation of information memorandum, getting the value of assets done from registered valuers, convening and chairing committee of creditors meetings for various approvals, appraisals, and directions, preparation of bid evaluation matrix, preparation request for a resolution plan, invite expression of interest and developing resolution applicants for submission of resolution plans, and so on. So these are all duties that are required. All the compliances are required to be completed by the insolvency professional. And for that, the insolvency professional is also, as we will see in foregoing things, the insolvency professional can appoint professionals for helping the insolvency professional in doing all these jobs that are listed here. Liquidator, the idea is that the liquidator shall continue the operations in case it helps faster or higher recovery of the assets. Then the liquidator can make public announcement for inviting claims. He can receive, collate, verify, and he has to rather receive, collate, verify, and admit claims. Then he has to complete all books of accounts and which are books of accounts, and operate the bank account of the corporate debtor, get the valuation of the assets, prepare and submit various reports to NCLT, prepare complete description of assets. There's a lot of responsibilities of the liquidator. End of the day, what he's required to do, he's required to sell the assets and realize the maximum possible value. The liquidator's indicative fee, that is part of the insolvency law, is also based on the number that they have, or the fees that they have realized, or the assets value that they have realized, and the asset value that they have disbursed. What is a committee of creditor? So everyone understands perhaps that when a normal company, the shareholders will have or will vote for the directors, right? And the directors will then ask the management to produce results, or the directors will also take operational day-to-day decisions, or leave them to certain, or delegate them to other employees. But the idea is that yes, the committee of creditors in a way replaces the shareholders, And the committee of creditors is basically now they're in the shareholders' shoes, and in a way, the directors are suspended, and the insolvency professional is in the shoes of the director. So it is then the IP that is reporting to the committee of creditors, and it is then leading that process of restoring the company or managing the company during the CIRP. So the participants of meeting can either be an employee or member or a qualified IP. The role is to understand the proceedings and protect the interest of members, to prepare a report on meeting and keep the members fully appraised. Authorized representative of a class of creditors, it allows the authorized representative, the act allows the authorized representative to attend the meetings, then circulate the agenda, notices, and minutes of all the creditors of that class, and announce a voting window for taking voting from each creditor of each resolution, and then to protect the interest of that class of creditors to whom he is representing. Let us look at some numbers. So here are the number of registered insolvency professionals, a total of 3,500 registered insolvency professionals, out of which we have about 2,500 who are having an authorization for assignment. Now, AFA is a process which kind of is very similar to a practicing chartered accountant, in the sense that maybe the registered IPs who are not having an AFA are not allowed to take up any assignment today. They don't have an authorization for announcement. That can be for various reasons, including the idea that they have not applied for the AFA. So the idea is that the active IPs who are actively looking at and doing various jobs or who are eligible for an AFA are about 2,500. There is a region-wise distribution. So you will see that the lowest number is in the eastern region in totality. Then there is then the next lowest is perhaps in rest of West India, and then you have southern region in totality having about 500 or so insolvency professionals. Delhi and Northeast is on the higher side at about 1,000 or so insolvency professionals who are actively working. Mumbai and rest of West regions, they are about 600, and southern region is about again 550 or so. So this distribution will perhaps help you understand that yes, there are a lot of insolvency professionals, and all these insolvency professionals are in competition with each other to get work. But the idea is that for you to understand that good knowledge, good experience will perhaps allow you to become a good insolvency professional and beat competition. Of course, insolvency professionals have as we just discussed, the scope of work. They have a lot of work at their hand, and that is what then makes it a slightly complicated and difficult profession. So any questions on this? Yeah.
There is one question from CS Sharma ji. How can IP get empaneled with banks? So this is the most important question when we talk about with regard to getting work from the banks.
Banks see 2-3 things when you apply for the empanelment. So recently Bank of Baroda did an empanelment exercise and they came out with the results. So when you see any bank's empanelment application, you will see that the bank asks for what is the experience that you have had. Then the bank asks for what is the infrastructure that you have. What kind of office, what kind of infrastructure, what kind of support team do you have? Then the bank says, oh, are you a part of an IPE? Because the moment the bank then they says that, okay, if your IPE has experience, then we will also assume that maybe you have the experience to handle that case, or your partners in the IPE will support you with respect to your assignment. In several cases, we have seen that the first case is the most difficult to get, and the first case might often come from the NCLT directly as part of the list that you're part of with the NCLT, which IBBI gives to the NCLT. At some occasions, then what happens is that in case you're working with other partners, there's a possibility for somebody to say that, okay, my partner will be the RP if somebody else was appointed as the IRP. So there's a possibility of a change through the IRP to the RP route, or there is a possibility of a change where some committee of creditors is not happy with their insolvency professional and they want to change the insolvency professional to somebody else. In that case also, that replacement one can participate in and have their first possible case. When the banks are impaneling IPs, they are impaneling IPs for the initial application that they want to make before NCLT as a financial creditor. And of course, that is a very, very important part, but there are other avenues of getting cases. So even in case you don't have the experience, you don't have a single case in your hand, these are other ways of getting a case in your name. And once you have some experience, then it becomes easier to get more cases.
Okay, sir.
So these are some numbers for your knowledge. 2,500 active IPs. This is number updated till March 21. This is the geographical distribution of the IPs across various states. You will see a high number in Delhi. You will see numbers which are less, higher. So depending on where you are from, you can always see that yes, there might be a good might be very few, might be very less competition in a place that you are belonging to. That might give you an edge when it comes to empanelments, when it comes to getting ahead of other competition. Another representation talks about the age profile. Now, these are all statistics published by IBBI in their quarterly newsletter. Again, an interesting statistic where so IBBI now does not allow insolvency professionals who are more than 70 years old to have an AFA. And therefore, you will find that a lot of IPs between 60 to 70 age, they are working, the good number are working at that age. 40 to 50, there is a good number. 50 to 60, there is a good number. So there are a good number of IPs now in all age groups, but less than 40, there are few insolvency professionals, only 227. And that's the kind of age breakup. So maybe the idea is that with graduate insolvency program, more and more individuals will become insolvency professionals at younger age, and the young blood will come into the profession, which as of now requires a lot of experience to even get qualified and to become an IP. So this was the basics of the IPs and the age profile and so on. I will now come to the voluntary liquidation process. So voluntary liquidation process, the voluntary liquidator is required to verify that there is no default in the no default is committed by the corporate debtor, that to complete all documentations, approvals, resolutions, etc., for initiating the process of voluntary liquidation, to liquidate all the assets by way of sale or realization, to distribute the sale proceeds to the creditor, and an application to adjudicating authority for liquidating the corporate debt. Again, some more statistics. These ones are talking about how many voluntary liquidations have happened. So about 907 voluntary liquidations have commenced, out of which 407 have been closed as on date. And there has been a steady increase. March 18, there were 184, then 413, then 684. So the pace has picked. But the idea is that yes, any one of your clients who feels that they don't want to run their company any longer and the company is solvent, voluntary liquidation is a quick and fast process to wind up the company and liquidate the company and finish off the entity. Coming to the next part, where we talk about resolution professional of individuals and how that works. The idea is that this has been already notified, as I said, for personal guarantors to corporate debtor, and there the preparation and submission of application to initiate the insolvency resolution process for a debtor, preparation and submission of an application to initiate insolvency resolution process for a creditor, then appointment of resolution professional, preparation and submission of various reports, public announcements, etc., verification, registration of claims. All these jobs are required to be done by the insolvency professional during the process of insolvency of an entity. There is a terminology change. The resolution plan that is otherwise approved in a CIRP process now here becomes a repayment plan. The creditors have to agree again with the vote share, then kind of say that okay, this person will pay over time. That's the idea. That's the logic that goes behind all that. Then bankruptcy trustee, what we talked about, that when we talk about an individual instead of insolvency, we talk about the bankruptcy trustee. So we're talking about application filing, appointment as bankruptcy trustee for conducting the bankruptcy process, take control and custody of bankruptcy estate of the debtor, invite claims from creditors, register the claims, list of creditors, summoning a meeting of creditors and conducting the meeting, realize the value of all items of bankruptcy estate by sale of assets or otherwise by way of realization of debts and claims, finding undervalued, preferential, extortionate, and fraudulent transactions. These are also called PUF transactions. PUFE is also a word that is used, and making an application to adjudicating authority for obtaining appropriate orders, divide and disperse the value realized to claimants, creditors, then closure of the bankruptcy trustee. So this is the kind of general role for a bankruptcy trustee, is kind of handhold the person who is going through the bankruptcy, make sure that he's giving you all the details, make sure that he's giving you all the creditors details, and then allow the court to pass an order that that person now gets a fresh life, he's discharged from his bankruptcy duties, and that he can then resume his activities based on whatever skill and talent that he has. An IPE, Insolvency Professional Entity, as we said, as Mr. Goel said, AAA Insolvency is an insolvency professional entity. Sole objective is to provide support services to IPs who are its partners or directors. The support services can be provided for CIRP process, or PARP process, for liquidation process, for individuals, and so on. So it can be for anything and everything. An IPE can form or anything and everything as far as it is concerned with IBC. Then IPE can form a company, LLP, or registered partnership firm. Then minimum net worth has to be 1 crore rupees. Majority of its shares or capital contribution is held by IPs who are its directors or partners. Majority of its full-time directors or designated partners are IPs. One IP can become partner or director of one IPE only. Some more numbers. We're now talking about the number of IPEs. So initially there were about 3 that were recognized in 1617. Then there were 73, 13 were added. Then there was a notification that this new law came in that these IPEs need a minimum capital of 1 crore rupees, and this 40 entities were de-recognized at that point in time. And currently we have about 83 IPEs at various stages, at various having partnership, or rather companies or LLPs and so on, having different structures, having different size and scale of operations. Opportunities for professionals other than insolvency professionals. So when we talk about other than insolvency professionals, we talk about support services to IPs. What are the support services that an IP might need? He might need a person who can handle his compliances or the company's compliances. He might need somebody who can do their audit, company's audit. He might need somebody who can collate the claims. There are a host of activities that an IP might be required to get done. Advisor to corporate debtors undergoing corporate insolvency resolution process, when consultations to entities under financial stress, including options and threats under IBC, protection against insolvency attacks, and recovery of business debtors and advances through IBC, advisor to resolution applicants for taking over companies. All these are jobs that one can do as an independent person. There is a process in the insolvency law which is called information utility. This is a new system that has been launched, and what they allow is that information utility allows anyone and everyone to report financial data. Financial data can be invoices raised by you against somebody, and you can upload that financial data so that it becomes part of the public data and allows the data to be used for statistical purposes, for proving that yes, you did have a debt and so on. So what all do IPs need as professional support services from others? These services can be provided by an IPE. These services can be provided by an insolvency professional. He can arrange these directly in his office. It can be preparation of information memorandum, preparing a report on business and financial operations of the corporate debtor for the previous 2 years, claim verification process, evaluation of assets and liabilities as or at the date of commencement of CIRP, examination of resolution plans submitted to resolution professional, internal audit during CIRP at the instance of RP with a special focus on fund flow and leakage of funds during CIRP, stock audit, statutory audit, audit of income and expenditure of corporate debtor during a liquidation process, all compliances of corporate debtor during CIRP for which RP will appoint professionals. So these are the various things that an RP might need from a professional. Then one can be the advisor to corporate debtors undergoing corporate insolvency resolution process. So there can be a strategy for dealing with CIRP. One can advise on that. One can then compiling the information required by resolution professional, preparation, submission, and discussion on resolution plan, advisor to corporate debtor for getting forensic transaction audit conducted, identify and evaluating reasons for financial stress, and then arriving at sustainable debt of the corporate debtor. Any questions so far from anyone? I hope this is understandable for everyone, and if not, then I can try and talk about something in detail. Yes.
So there is, Ankit, there is one question from Sujit Kumar ji. While compiling relevant laws, it comes to the knowledge of resolution professionals that balance sheet of last 2 years are unaudited before CIRP initiation date. Can a resolution professional sign the said balance sheets?
So normally, if the financial statements are incomplete, yes, to make sure that the compliances are complete for the year that the insolvency professional is taking care of, the previous balance sheets need to be made. And if the corporate, if those balance sheets, if the CD's directors are not available, who would vet that earlier data, then during that, and the financials are being finalized during the CIRP process, then the insolvency professional can sign those balance sheets. But I think that's anyways beyond today's topic. The idea is that the insolvency professional in that case will be signing those balance sheets as an officer in charge, right? The audit will still be done by somebody else. So the audit has to be awarded either to the existing auditor, and maybe the fees needs to be settled for it, or it will go to a new auditor. Any further question? I'll then move forward.
I think so, no. We are good to go. Proceed further.
So what do you do in the normal course of business? You kind of identify and evaluate distressed companies for restructuring and rescue planning. You kind of say, oh, somebody is having trouble repaying his loans. And the moment that information comes to you, you should now think, oh, does this law suit this person? Then that will, create more opportunities as a professional also, and kind of plan his rescue, developing the strategies to mitigate risks, working out a detailed bankable financial structure of the business, then working out a detailed plan for restructuring the business, assessment or distressed assets, cash flows, direct due diligence, turnaround feasibility, advise on utilization of resources to the optimal level, then drafting insolvency petitions if required, or opting for restructuring under RBI circulars. Representation before NCLT and NCLAT can be done for clients by CAs, by all professionals mostly, negotiating settlements with banks and other creditors, advising for mergers or acquisitions or takeovers, right? So all these are options or jobs that one can do, which are surrounding IBC. And most of us will think that, okay, maybe the traditional practice of the audit is what we are doing. But then the idea is that in case you find that, okay, these assignments are challenging maybe, but they're also rewarding at the same time, you can try and explore this area of restructuring. Then advisory to management on a going concern is also required by management frequently. Then protection against insolvency and insolvency attacks and discovery of debts with IBC. So you identify the default by any person and protecting from insolvency attacks. You change, one can change in the documentation of business entity to build in protection against insolvency attacks. So what are insolvency attacks, right? Somebody who you know, somebody your client, you can always guide him that how do you avoid insolvency, sir? What do you do that you are not held to be insolvent by somebody who is who you are liable to pay? So that consultancy and to prevent insolvency attacks, you can kind of give them guidance, give them value there. Then you can advise resolution applicants for taking over companies. So whenever there is a company under insolvency, there's always this resolution applicant, or maybe there is a resolution applicant who is interested in taking over the company and start running the company with his management. So in that case, what is important to understand is that you kind of advise to the resolution applicant, take the resolution, go to the resolution applicant, or guide the resolution applicant on what should be the price at which you should purchase this asset, what should be your timeline, what should be your payment timelines, and so on. So you kind of complete the advisory services for strategy, preparation of documents, process and implementation for submission of resolution plan to take over a corporate debtor, and then preparation of resolution plan with sustainable debt and restructuring of debt and equity, arrangement of funds for taking over companies under IBC, consultancy for acquisition during acquisition funding under IBC, then representing the resolution applicant before RP and COC. So all these are tasks that one can do as an advisor to the resolution applicant. Coming to the next part of transaction audit, forensic audit. So I think this is something that you all, most professionals are aware of, that what is forensic audit? Forensic audit is mostly a very, very detailed analysis or detailed audit of each and every transaction that is conducted using modern technology, so that the complete trail of financial data, financial money moving in, moving out is obtained. So what do? You kind of, as I said, puff transactions, preferential, undervalued, fraudulent, and at the same time undervalued. So these are all transactions and extortionate. So these are puff transactions, and puff transactions are prohibited in IBC. 1 year is the time period for preferential and undervalued transaction, and it's of course 2 years in case the parties are a related party. So IBA registration is preferred by PSBs, but it is not something which is mandatory. Somebody who does not have an IBA registration as a forensic auditor can also do a transaction audit. IBA registration is being preferred by PSBs, and complete independence in character and profile, which is not influenced by external pressure, is required in this case. Everyone clear for up to transaction auditor, forensic auditor? Do you want me to talk in length about any specific topic? Anyone? So coming to opportunities as a registered valuer. Now, what is a registered valuer? Under which act is registered valuer appointed? Anyone can tell me? Companies Act, right? It is not an IBBI Act based terminology. It is a Companies Act based terminology. And then the IBC has adopted the same definition, which is there in the Companies Act. And in the Companies Act, there was a system to appoint the regulator who will be becoming the valuer for the insolvency for the various functions of Companies Act. And for insolvency process also, there was a requirement to have a valuer for various processes. That might be, as we discussed, CIRP, liquidation, voluntary liquidation. There is a role for valuer in all these functions. So in those opportunities, yes, the valuer will play an important role, and those opportunities are available. This is the number that is presently there. These are the statistics of registered valuers registered as on date. You will find that the majority are land and building valuers, but the securities and financial assets are picking up very, very fast. Most of the land and building valuers are
Ankit, there seems to be some problem. Yes. So you need to unmute yourself. Ankit, you need to unmute yourself. Just a second.
Yeah, there was a problem, I believe, because of which it got
Yes.
disconnected.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I think the screen must be visible now again. So we're looking
Yes.
at the number of registered valuers. The registered valuer, as I was saying, IPs are then members of IIPAs, and the IPs are also recognized as and listed on their listed as authorized persons by the IBBI. And the idea is that registered valuers also have a similar framework where they are, of course, members of an RVO, and then the RVO, and then they are also then recognized by IBBI once the RVO recognizes them. So these are the many RVOs that we have in the country, and these are the various number of members that they have. So some of the you will see the numbers and you will say that, okay, land and building valuers and plant machinery valuers are mostly IOV registered valuers organization, because IOV has been there for a long time. Then of course, when you look at SFA numbers, you will see a lot of numbers coming in from ICAI, that is the Chartered Accountants Registered Valuer Organization, the ICSI and the ICMAI numbers are also there. So this is the kind of registered valuer numbers that we have in the country. The total number is about 4,000, and that's something that is increasing as we speak. Then these are the entities. So what is the idea of entities? In IPE, the idea was that you are an entity for the purpose of providing services to the IPs. But in the registered valuer framework, the logic is different. The concept is different. Here, when you become a member of an or a partner in an entity, then you stop using your practicing license and individual name, and then you start working as a member. So very similar to what a CA does when he is a part of a CA firm, right? Because then the appointment letter is also issued in the CA firm's name and so on. So then here also that happens, but here the only difference is perhaps that the organization is registered, and that empanelment needs to be done. Here the difference is then you get the license to practice that asset class for which you have partners. So in case you have partners having land and building license, or land and building who are registered for land and building asset class, then you have of that. Maybe you have a plant and machinery one. Maybe you have maybe you have an SFA one. So then you have that kind of number. So if you look at these organizations or these entities, you will look at a total number of entities which are registered as 40, and out of them, I think about 20 or so are registered for all asset classes. That should be the number that is there. Looking at the registration pattern, you will see that, okay, these are the kind of numbers that increase every quarter. So not very important, but you would know that, yes, this is the kind of increase that is happening every quarter for various asset classes. Of course, needless to say, plant and machinery valuers are 400 in total, land and building are about 2000, securities of financial assets about 1500. Looking at the spread that they have across the region, you will find again that eastern region has the minimal numbers, and then of course Delhi has about in total about a significant number. Southern region has a significant number, especially in the land and building valuation part. So you will see that land and building valuation valuers in southern India are a very high number, and then there are other numbers here which you will be able to then see and find where you have a vacuum in a way. These are the state-wise distribution of registered valuers, and yes, this is also something that IBBI publishes. This is the age profile. Less than 30 is about 226. And there is a sizable number between 30 to 40, 40 to 50, and 50 to 60. And a few 60 to 70, and few 70 to 80, and so on. So what are the services that a registered valuer can give? The idea now is that a draft valuer bill came in, and this was based on the committee that worked on this, committee of experts as they called it. This committee of experts sat up, led by IBBI, led by Dr. Sahu, and they made a comprehensive research on what the profession of valuation should be like in India. And they have come out with a draft valuer bill, and they have come out with about a 1800-page report. Good part about that 1800-page report is that it has a 17-page executive summary. Anyone can read it. It is available on IBBI's website, and that is an interesting read where you can understand the future for a valuer in India. And the vision that they have is actually very, very forward-looking, where the regulator says that yes, the regulation needs to be there, and indeed the regulation, in my opinion, also will help the profession grow and have international reputation, where Indian valuers can do then a lot of work internationally also, and also have an edge in the knowledge and the experience that or the future that valuation as a profession has. And of course, the registered value framework that is being used is under the Companies Act, and the IBBI has used the same framework for IBC also.
Ankit there is one hand raised by Divya Saxena. Divya ji, I am just allowing you to unmute yourself. आप एक बार unmute करके you can ask your question directly. Divya ji, you there? I think so. She is not able to unmute herself. Or Divya ji, you can put the question in the chat box, and we will take up your question. In the meantime, Ankit sir, you can continue.
Yeah. So basically, this started off in 2018 when the Minister of State for Law and Justice gave out the first 16 certificates on July 2018. I myself got registered or recognized by IBBI in October 2018. And then I think this is, of course, the total number has increased rapidly since then. The idea is that the numbers to grow, because if you look at the wealth tax registration, because if you look at valuation regulation in India, you will see that before these rules or before this structure was formed by IBBI for registering registered valuers, there was nothing other than Wealth Tax Act. And if you look at the Wealth Tax Act registration process, it is actually something which is where the basic qualifications of a person are seen if they are meeting the criteria, but there is no examination, there is no CPE, there is no need, there is no no system that somebody can complain to the income tax authorities that okay, this person did a valuation under Wealth Tax Act and or under any act whatsoever, and then he has not done a good job. So there are no standards, there are no RVOs, no structure. So it is only a process of empanelment, getting inside the list, and then having a license to practice without any test, without any examination. So moving forward, I believe this is so IBBI brought in this because the quality of because the valuation process was very important in IBC, and IBBI said, okay, let us take this up as a parallel process to have a framework for registering and training valuers. So what is the eligibility of becoming a registered valuer? You have to be registered with IBB as a valuer. You have to be a member of the RVO, of a RVO. Then you have to pass the examination as conducted by IBBI. There's a qualification required that we will talk about. You have to be a resident Indian, not a undischarged insolvent, not a minor or an unsound mind, not convicted as a fit and proper you are a fit and proper person, and there is no penalty under 271J on you. Company or partnership entity can also be registered, also be registered as a valuer if the same has been set up for rendering professional or financial services. Three for all the partners, three or all partners are registered valuers. That is the condition for having a entity, RVE. The demand is then Companies Act. There are certain SEBI regulations that have already adopted the Companies Act definition. Then there is IBC. Then there are two valuations required under every IBC provision, whether it is CIRP, whether it is PIRP, whether it is liquidation. Two valuation reports, at least two are required in case of a major difference, and even third can be asked for. Then there is valuation required under Sashakt scheme. Valuation required under Income Tax Act can then require they based on the nature of assets and based on the section that you're looking at, then you kind of see what valuer is allowed to do. So 50C, 55A valuer can do. 56 under Rule 11 UA, a registered valuer can do it, or a merchant banker can do it, or even a CA or so. Income tax is still to recognize the registered valuer framework, and the draft valuer bill talks about how the various acts, Income Tax Act, SARFAESI Act, other acts which still talk about other definitions of a valuer will be changed or modified to bring in a modified version wherein this framework, which will be registered valuer framework, can be used for all valuations across various laws. Companies Act requires valuation for various purposes. There is a process under 62(1)(c) to issue shares under private placement. There, the registered valuers have a role. Valuation of assets involved in arrangement of non-cash transactions. Their valuers have a role, because there what happens is that the valuer is required to value the consideration which is coming to the company in exchange for shares. Then valuation of shares, properties and assets of companies under debt restructuring process, valuation report along with notice. So under a compromise or an arrangement, a valuation is required. So basically, then there are merger sections that require valuation. Then there are equity shares which are held by minority shareholders. If you want to give a minority shareholders an exit, then the valuer kind of values that company and gives a value. Qualifications: you can be graduate in any stream and a member of a CA, MBA. There are other degrees that have been recognized since. So the basic idea is 3 years of experience as a chartered accountant, cost accountant, or a company secretary. Then MBA or a postgraduate in finance. You can also have other graduate level qualifications for which might be and wherein you should have at least 5 years of experience in case of that kind of a course. There is a framework under Sashakt scheme, under the RBI circulars that have come in, where there is a lot of opportunity for professionals, for CAs outside becoming IPs or becoming valuers, where one can advise on the RBI circulars of restructuring and so on. So any person you feel is fitting into the COVID circular or the other general circular of restructuring, it is a good profession. It is something which adds a lot of value to everyone around you. And then this is a process that has been talked about, that there's an intercreditor agreement, then internal restructuring has to happen, categorization of defaults have to happen as SMA1, SMA0, SMA1, SMA2, then more than a few amounts exceeding of particular exposure. So this was struck down that okay, whatever is, the bank is free to take whatever action it needs to take. But yes, there is a problem that if the bank does not do anything, does not do restructuring, and the account continues to be in default, then perhaps the provisioning requirements will remain. That is the reason why one can say that, oh, I will have to do this. So NCLT option for companies under financial stress. So why should companies go to NCLT in case they're financial stress? One can go under Section 10. One can, Section 10 empowers the corporate applicant to file an application. Corporate applicant can mean any person. It can be a corporate debtor, member or a partner, individual person, and so on. Section 29A. So basically the idea is that to understand which corporate debtor should go to insolvency, one needs to understand Section 29A. Section 29A kind of lists down those circumstances or those people who are not allowed to take back the company under insolvency. That can be an undischarged insolvent, willful defaulter, NPA account, or holder of more than 1 year, or convicted for any offense for 2 years, disqualified to act as a director, prohibited by SEBI from trading, promoter of any corporate debtor. So in case these conditions are not applicable, then the corporate debtor or the resolution applicant might be the company itself. So the idea is to spot the problem early and then try and find out a possible solution. So the restructuring of stress at the initial stage before CDA becomes ineligible for submission of resolution plan, and that's one reason. And situation can be controlled before the business is getting adverse impact by way of losing credibility, loss of customer trust, and so on. So you can try and recover the company quicker. Corporate debtor is with too many litigations, statutory liabilities. We have had cases where somebody says, "Oh, I have thousands of crores of income tax liabilities, and I don't have the means to pay that." So in that case, yes, there can always be an insolvency where you can say, "Oh, income tax dues are not payable," and those can be then written off, or they can be because they are at the bottom of the pyramid. Other dues, other outstandings can be paid, and that can be left off. Earlier option with the promoters was neither make the company a zombie company or drag it along unlawfully. So what is a zombie company? Zombie company is basically a zombie is a system where you have a dead creature and then you're just roaming around with that dead creature. So that's a zombie. So basically the idea is that you shouldn't be moving around with and wasting your energy, effort, and carrying something dead. So rather than carrying something dead, you should rather let it be, leave it to the NCLT, and leave it to the process of the law to either get dissolved, get sold off, or to go to somebody else who can run it better. Other options to start phoenixing and indulging in unlawful activities. So other people, what they do is they create a parallel factory, parallel unit, then transfer everything there and then start manufacturing there and so on. So both these options may not be available now, as anyone can take you to CIRP, including workers, employees, shareholders. So it is then becomes a game of, kind of when does the bomb burst? Because as you are delaying it, at some point in time, you might feel, oh, now I can't pay, I can't borrow and pay. So because you're borrowing at higher interest rates, you're trying to repay whatever you have, right? So that becomes very, very tedious, very, very difficult at times. Then banks were not doing restructuring for quite a few years. Now, because of the COVID related circular, yes, many banks are doing it, where there was businesses are eligible because of some default during the COVID period. The NPA classification was being delayed, and it is better than CD goes to NCLT before any other person is making an assumption. RBI circular dated 12th February 2018 has not taken off yet as restructuring of the cases and pre-packaged sale of running businesses, pre-packaged insolvency processes come in since then. What are the risks of taking a running company into NCLT? You might risk investor confidence, including banks and other creditors. Promoters may lose the CD to someone else. The CD might lose value if the customer runs away and the customer gets frightened, right? So the forensic auditor may find some of the transactions under section these, and then the promoters may become ineligible to participate in bidding process. The entire process can be declared as malified, and promoters may be debarred from the participating into bidding process. So one of the companies that went into insolvency in this fashion was LML. They thought that, okay, we will get the company back, the promoters. They took the company to insolvency themselves. And what happened next was that it had to shut down because it did not find a buyer, it did not find anyone who can take it back. And yes, the valuations were such that nobody was able to buy or take over that factory and run it for future. PPIRP, also called PIRP, is pre-packaged insolvency resolution plan. So banks and FIs would intervene. So what is a pre-packaged insolvency process? Pre-packaged insolvency process is another way of a CIRP. In a CIRP, what happens is that people take the company to the court, and the court the NCLT then takes a decision whether there's a default or not, whether this company needs to go through the process or not, and there is maybe non-cooperation from the promoters. So in case of MSMEs, registered MSMEs, that is, now the new law which has been notified says that in case of pre-packaged insolvency resolution process, they have allowed MSMEs to have a pre-packaged insolvency plan where they will get the plan or draft plan approved from the creditors beforehand. And if their plan is not beaten by somebody else through a Swiss challenge, as they call it, then they will continue implementing it. If it is, then perhaps they will have to, they will lose the company to somebody else. So the loss of company to somebody else, one reduces in that fashion, because if you're giving a good value to the creditors, they will perhaps like you to continue running it. Okay. So RP will get fee from the CD for the pre-appointment role. Then RP will work on the base resolution plan, primary information memorandum. Professionals other than insolvency professionals can also take up the assignment and appoint an IP after in principle decision as taken by the FC. Mergers and acquisitions of those companies with some financial stress can be handled under the PIRP process, and sale of businesses can be routed through PIRP. Any questions before I move forward? So how to safeguard corporate debtor under insolvency, under a corporate debtor, and if the IRP is appointed under IB code and so on. So the IRP shall make all efforts and endeavor to preserve the value of the properties. The IRP shall have the power to manage the operations and run the business. There is a moratorium that is there available with the IBC. Claims of creditors can be settled, and 90% of the voting share then can withdraw the application. Full support may be extended to the IRP so that no litigation is started. In case eligible to participate in bidding process, the exiting promoters must calculate the sustainable debt of the company with full fairness and should bid for the CD. IRP, if cooperated fully, will run the operations with the help of existing KMPs, including directors working full-time for the company. So basically, there is a merit in this process to safeguard the corporate debtor through this process and taking the company back into the normal operations. So how to safeguard then? Of course, the present regime is pay or perish, because IBC, they say, when somebody says, is IBC successful? The next reply to that question is, yes, IBC is successful. Then the success is not noted only by way of how much value has been preserved by IBC, But the mere threat of IBC has caused so many promoters, so many companies to take the good decision, take the good idea, and just repay their loan, and find out sources or reduce their debt burden to more normal levels. And that has kind of pushed them. Otherwise, the thought process was, okay, there is no point, there's no problem, even if the bank is not the bank is not going to do anything against us. We are continuing we will continue the way we are, and so on. So it is now pay or perish. In case you are not able to pay your dues, then you perish. CD can receive notice under Section 8, then option of time would be either, and that option would be stressful. Then you should never ignore an invoice raised by any person. Either pay or take necessary action to settle. In case no settlement reaches, then register a dispute. So the guide is very clear. Tell your all your clients that in case you have an invoice, please don't keep it into your drawer. Please don't just overlook it. Treat with it. In case you feel no, it is too much. That is too much charges for what you agreed. Raise a dispute. Settle it. So in case you don't settle it, you will have higher liabilities. Of course, now that the threshold has been increased to 1 crore rupees, there can be some relief against small claims that can go to NCLT. But the idea is that, yes, there should be everything neat and clean so that nobody has the opportunity to claim against you. Then the only safeguard is pay or register a dispute. And I think we have talked about that. So I'll just move forward. How can CAs, what is the role of CAs under IBC and as auditors of companies under financial stress? So IRP is having an authority to access the books. IRP has the authority to ask for books that are available or ask for documents that are available with the auditors. And therefore, NFRA can also say that why is the CA not having the documents that they are supposed to maintain, the documentation that they're supposed to maintain. So in case that is the case, then NFRA can also take action. Signs of direct diversion of bank loan, one must see, there are circulars that are available for willful defaulters, why, all these should be made, all these should be taken into account, looked at. Standard of auditing require the auditors to raise an alarm when they see a fraud, and so on. So CARO clauses are also important. Basically, the idea is that auditors are responsible to look at fraud, look at diversion of money, look at willful defaults. So these are some things that you must look at. Business cycle starts increasing is another very important thing. So there is inventory, a lot of inventory, and then there is a lot of sundry debtors, but still the company is not having the cash to pay its creditors. So that's again all business cycles. When they start increasing, that means that there are some assets which are not realizable readily, and that kind of must be bringing stress to the organization. Outstanding bills are not squared off, bill by bill reconciliation does not happen, third party confirmation is also necessary, then asset verification is primary duty of the auditor. Auditor's responsibility in reporting the same as discussed earlier. So all these things are important. Then we talk about red flags, and we talk about forensic audit or transaction audit. Then we look at, also when we look at audit or forensic audit, we look at red flags, we look at evergreening, business cycle continuity, third-party confirmations, physical verification of inventory. So these are all important points from the audit perspective, also from the forensic audit perspective that can be, that should be done by the auditor and that the auditor should be careful about. So under the current crisis, one should avail the opportunity under IBC, and if not IP, then should practice as consultant for benefit of clients around IBC. Should also adopt the profession of registered valuer. Very important to register, give this examination, becoming registered valuer. A lot of opportunities come to chartered accountants as valuers from fellow colleagues, from other acts, and if this draft valuer bill becomes a reality, it will throw a lot of opportunities to the professionals who have been here for a long time. Interestingly, the new draft valuer bill recognizes registered valuers, or already recognizes, and also kind of proposes that they have proposed a system as we have in CA, where there is a fellow and there is an associate. So they have said that once the person completes 3 years, I think it's 3 years or 5 years, the person will become a fellow member or a fellow valuer. So that fellow valuer will then enjoy some seniority over others in the form of empanelments, in the form of eligibility criteria at various locations, various areas. Multiple sources of income will reduce your dependence on auditees and can offer to achieve auditors' independence. Avail the professional opportunity under IBC, and if not, then IP should practice as consultant for the benefit of clients, should also adopt the profession of registered valuer, as opportunities are increasing under IBC, Companies Act, SEBI, income tax, business transactions, and AS. Multiple sources of income will reduce your dependence on auditees and then you can afford and achieve auditors' independence. I always say that auditor is independent as long as his fee is also independent, his fee is not that important to him. So yes, it is important for you to have a lower number of lower fee, or rather distribute your dependence on a particular client's fee so that you can be fairly independent. Early detection of stress and default regime, insolvency attacks on companies, that can be something that you can work for. Then forensic audit in each case under CIRP, and forensic auditors are also reporting NFRA matters, all these things, RBI master circular, proper audit guidance. These are some tips that I can share. Any subject, any part of what we discussed that you will like me to give more details of, or maybe I can take the questions in the last 10 minutes that we have. Any questions on the process generally that somebody might be interested in, any queries that you have with respect to difficulty level of these examinations, I can answer those questions now.
First of all, thank you, Ankit sir. So there are a couple of queries further. So I will just like to just highlight these. One is from Sujit Kumar. Sir, if I have been appointed as RP on 1st of April 2021, now company has 500 employees, which is impossible, with which it is impossible to run the business. If I am terminating them from company with immediate effect, then I will have to compensate them as per labor and other relevant laws, the labor laws. Whether the compensation determined would be the part of CIRP cost or not. Though it is not the part of today's session, but definitely we would like you to address.
My thought process is that when we talk about these 500 people, like I need to understand that they must already be participating in the production process that the company might be having. So the idea behind for an insolvency professional to cut down the labor once, or cut down the employees once he starts this business, starts managing a company during the CIRP, might be right in certain circumstances, but in most circumstances what IPs do is that they try and keep status quo and preserve what is available, because having a 500 strong manpower available is also might be an asset for somebody who is wanting to becoming the resolution applicant for such a company. The focus should be on keeping the production or increasing the production as compared to what the production was before the CIRP start date. Because we all see this, right? When the bank, when the company is managing money is coming in from the customer, then it is paying interest, then it is paying various repayments. When the moratorium is enforced, you suddenly should ideally have more cash flows, because your interest outgo has gone now. You don't have to pay any interest. You don't have to pay any of your older creditors. You only have to now pay those creditors from whom you are availing goods and services during the CIRP period. So your business should ideally become more viable as compared to what it was before CIRP start date. And the idea is to preserve that status quo, use that money that you are making from doing that business into maybe increasing the orders, so that at the time of making an information memorandum, when that company's profile goes to somebody, they should see, the resolution applicant should see that yes, this company is doing well without debt. Let us give that part of debt which is sustainable, for this size of the business, and take over this unit. Maybe the promoters can also do that in case they are eligible under 29A.
So Sujit,
that is my viewpoint.
Absolutely, sir. So another question is from Pawan Singhal-ji. When companies under IBC process and key employees are left due to stress financial situation, company is unable to pay the current as well as past dues. In this situation, whether IP can force employees to complete the pending compliances and other works without salary, and who will bear employees and other recurring costs, as the entire CIRP process will take 6 to 9 months period.
The law is very clear, sir, that in case the company or the CD is left with nothing in their bank account and they have no source of revenue from maybe realization of past customers, that is one source. Selling of some inventories that are ready to deliver can be another source. Now, if these sources are not available for somebody to maintain going concern, and the RP figures out, or the IRP figures out, that I need this much money to infuse into this business to keep it as a going concern, he has no other way but to go to the COC, tell them, show them the picture, that this is what is the number, this is the breakup of, sir, my cost that is expected or that is required to keep the business as a going concern, and ask the COC to either provide interim funding or make or allow them or ask them to pass interim funding and then go to somebody else with that interim funding proposal. So we have been successful in getting interim funding in some occasions from other people, not so even if the COC has not supported that interim funding or not given that interim funding, they sometimes permit you to go outside and get some interim funding. And if you go to those people who will be able to provide that interim funding with some confidence that yes, there are assets in the company, and those assets will be, even if the company does not find a resolution plan, it goes into liquidation, your debt will be repaid. So in that case, those people then kind of give the funding and then you can use the company. But of course, the interim funding has to be approved by the COC. They should get the message that the only way to preserve this company is infusing this money so that these necessary things are done. With respect to the CIRP cost, now when we talk about books of accounts, yes, books of accounts are required to be maintained. One is required to do that. One can appoint professionals to do it in case the company's employees are not able to do it. Because in case there is production, yes, ideally the people who are dealing in the production, who are party to the finance and accounts, should continue. And if they get confidence that they will be getting the salaries on a month-on-month basis, at least during the CIRP period, they most likely do continue.
As a IP, you can always ask for interim funding is something which we got to know. Another question is from Ghanshyamji. IP already attained 70 years of age, can take up support services, advisory services with IPE, RP without authorization from IPA. So my question would be, I suppose, can an IP take?
So IP, he can always play a supporting role. Not having an AFA debars the IP from having a case in his name. So NCLT will not be able to appoint him as IP, liquidator, bankruptcy trustee, or insolvency professional in case of an individual's case, NCLT or DRT, whatever. So the point is that he can be appointed as an officer as an IP's role, but he can certainly advise, consult, and advise the RA, make resolution plans, a lot of things that he can do as an IP, even if he doesn't have an AFA.
So another question is from Abdulji. That session is very good, very informative. So is the PPT available for public in general? I hope so.
Yeah, I can share the PPT. I think the recording will also be available with everyone. So I think this PPT should be available, yes, through that recording also.
So as a participants, we shall be sharing across the PPT. Whosoever has viewed this session, we shall be sharing across the PPT. So I think so we have taken all the questions, and now I would like to again invite Atulji to give vote of thanks to Ankitji.
Thank you, Ankitji, for such a session, for sharing us with all the opportunities that are available, especially those opportunities where a new insolvency professional can assist and can get the experience and learn the insolvency process. That is quite an eye-opener for all of us. And I assume that most of us might not be aware of those opportunities. So thank you so much for your session and time.
Thank you, Ankitji.
Thank you. And thank you, Vitamji. Yeah, thank you, Atulji.
And just in addition, 26th June, we shall be starting our international taxation series for 4 days, and the brochure and the series details will be shared to you over our Telegram as well as WhatsApp channel. Thanks a lot Thanks a lot, Ankit ji. And again,
Thank you.
thanks a lot to CA Anil Goel ji, who was part with us for initial 30 minutes for sharing his thoughts over the leadership qualities. Thanks a lot. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.